Good morning, I'm Adam Sexton. As is customary, New Hampshire voters have given their one-term incumbent governor a second term. Governor Chris Sununu won a decisive victory this past week over his Democratic challenger Molly Kelly by touting his successes with the economy and quality of life in the Granite State. But now he'll have to work with an all-Democratic legislature and executive council. Governor Sununu is our guest this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning.
Congratulations on re-election.
Thank you very much.
So what is it about the Chris Sununu GOP brand that succeeded on Election Day where so many other Republicans fell short?
Well, you know, we campaigned hard. We really did. We got out, we campaigned with folks running for the House and the Senate. All across the state, we didn't leave anyone out geographically. We were willing to touch upon all the different issues, whether it was the opioid crisis or mental health or veterans or seniors, the economy, right? Really focusing on the fundamental changes we've made to both lower taxes and create regulatory reform for businesses, which frees up flexibility for individuals and economic prosperity for families. And being able to walk through those steps and be able to talk about re-engineering a better system. And it's okay to challenge the system, have government accountability. These are things not just that we talk about, but we've actually implemented. These are the results we're getting for the state. And we just, again, talked about those results and let the chips fall where they may. And finally, we stayed very positive. You know, I didn't pay for a single negative TV ad or anything like that. We talked about the positivity, where we're going, working collaboratively with folks. And at the end of the day, I'm just proud that it resonated with the people in New Hampshire and they've sent us back. We're at the State House today. We're back at work. We're moving.
You look at some of the Republican losses in the Senate. District 23, for instance, Bill Gannon, that's a pretty Republican district. You can't point to any one reason why he would have lost in terms of a vote or an issue. He, in fact, was a pretty strong ally of yours, too, on the same thing with you. Yeah. And yet he ended up losing. Do you think President Trump played a factor in votes for people even down to the town level?
You know, I don't think so. And the reason I say that is when you look nationally, right? There wasn't some blue wave nationally that we really swept. I mean, there were a lot of governor's races that I looked at very carefully that were supposed to go Democrat, like Georgia or Florida or Ohio or Iowa. They all went Republican. So if there was a national real blue wave, I think that would have been something to talk about. But at the end of the day, this is retail politics, retail management. Voters look at the candidates. You got to get out early in the state. You got to make your case. You got to stay positive. You got to knock on the doors and do the hard work. Bill Gannon's a great example. I campaigned with Bill. He's was a great state senator. It's unfortunate we're not going to have him there. I hope he runs again or stays involved in the public sphere somehow, because he's a tremendous public servant, as are a lot of the folks that unfortunately aren't there. Sometimes those riptides are there, but I don't think you can say it's just Trump or just a single issue. At the end of the day, it's a midterm election. And we knew things were naturally going to go a bit Democrat, but you got to do the work. You got to get out there early, and you know, I can work with anybody. So we'll have a majority Democrat-led House and Senate and Executive Council. But you know, if anything, we've established ourselves with a reputation being able to just work with people, find areas of common ground, keep getting the job done.
What is on the agenda for 2019?
Well, the economy, to be sure. I mean, look, unfortunately, we know there's probably going to be a recession at some point down the road. That's just the natural course of things. So my job is to really make sure that we're setting up an infrastructure, both with continued tax cuts, investing in roads and bridges, and, you know, the $30 million we did in Safe Schools, more school grants to get that money out there, so that when times do get tight, and they may down the road, that we still have flexibility on the operational side, and we don't have to worry as much about the infrastructure. That's kind of bringing business sense into government a little bit, trying to plan for that long term, 5 and 10 years down the road. So by taking that approach, I think we're really going to insulate ourselves. I mean, we have an incredibly robust economy, some of the highest wages in the country, lowest poverty rate in the country. We have 20,000 available jobs today. That's a tremendous opportunity. Today is, I think, one of the first times ever we have more available jobs than folks on unemployment. Right? This is the first time that's ever happened, meaning we're opening up those doors of opportunity for folks. And that's what we're going to keep doing. And if we do that, it'll help us weather through tough times if they were to come.
We know Democrats have their agenda. They're probably going to make gun control a top issue. Do you see yourself working with them at all on something like background checks to get to a bill that you might be able to sign?
Well, look, I'm not going to say anything's off the table, but at the same time, it has to be something that works for New Hampshire, right? I mean, I don't know who the leadership is there, so I haven't spoken to anyone on the Democrat side, so it'd be unfair for me to comment one way or the other about a specific bill but everything is really, everything has to be brought forth, not with a partisan bent, not with a political bent, not just with political rhetoric. Nothing productive gets done that way. It always has to be done. My litmus test is this in the best interest of 1.3 million people in New Hampshire? That's it. That's it. And if there's a net benefit, we move forward with it. If we can find common ground where there's still a net benefit, we move forward with it. And if not, sometimes you have to go back to the drawing table and find another path. Family medical leave is a great example. You know, Democrats brought their bill last session. We asked for amendments and changes. They were unwilling to do that, and we couldn't get done. We didn't give up. We've come back and we're going to bring forward a new idea, a new plan that is, frankly, just much better. It allows more businesses to participate. It's truly voluntary. It isn't an income tax. It doesn't have startup costs. All these things that were plaguing the old bill, we've been able to find better solutions for. So that's just one example of ways that I think we can find common ground and move forward on a variety of issues.
You're no doubt going to have to play defense on some things, though. For instance, constitutional carry, if they try to repeal that, that's a veto for you?
Well, yeah, it's the Constitution. I mean, it amazes me we have to pass a law to certify the Constitution in the first place. But, yeah, there are certain things that are constitutional and that are just fundamental rights of individuals.
Mental health is an area where we could see some common ground. Do you think we're going to see the secure psychiatric unit moved out of the prison and perhaps go farther on that field of mental health?
I would love to see it. It's something I'll be proposing in my budget. We found great common ground on mental health. Both Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, liberals, everyone really came together to take 2 or 3 first steps in us really helping solve this mental health crisis. Still more work to do, and I imagine all those folks will be back at the table again, kind of continuing those steps. But with the SPU, absolutely, we'll be proposing making sure that the funds are there to get a decent facility up and running. How exactly it looks, I'm not quite sure, but we're going to make sure that we actually move that ball forward and take care of the issue.
I know you don't have a vote in this one, but do you think that Secretary of State Bill Gardner should stay on the job?
Secretary of State Bill Gardner is one of the greatest Secretary of States you can find in the country. I mean, he knows more about maintaining the first in the nation primary, which is incredibly important. He stays very nonpartisan on all of these issues. He understands this stuff better than ever. The fact that I think it's unfortunate that for the first time ever we have somebody that's trying to raise money and put money into House of Representatives campaigns so they can get the votes to become Secretary of State in an area where that individual doesn't have any background in that, and that puts the first in the nation primary at risk. It's a bizarre circumstance, but considering the incredible job Bill Gardner has done, why anybody would vote to get rid of him is beyond me. But I hope money doesn't come into play. It has already, and that's unfortunate. But you have to hope that that doesn't come into play and people understand how important the first in the nation primary is to this state. It's part of our brain. It's part of our culture. And to just ignore that key aspect and assume that it's just always going to be there would be very naive of this state. So I think Bill Gardner, we don't agree on everything, right? Bill and I have disagreed on many a point, but he does a great job because, like a lot of folks in Concord, he always puts New Hampshire first and will do anything he can to maintain, you know, New Hampshire as a priority and maintain the first in the nation primary. It's very important.
So if a Republican came to you and said, I'm thinking I might want to run for Secretary of State, you'd say, no, let's keep Bill.
I'd say, why? Why? I think Bill Gardner's done a good job. Why would we ever risk that?
You don't relish campaigning. You said that a lot in this last process, but nonetheless, we've got a U.S. Senate race coming up in 2020, and there will no doubt be a lot of pressure on you, a very popular Republican in this state, to at least take a look at that, perhaps challenging Senator Jeanne Shaheen. What are you going to tell those top Republicans in Washington when they pick up the phone and they call you and they say, hey, Chris, we'd like you to take a look at this?
Well, you know, if that phone call were to come in the next couple of weeks, I'd say, look, my priority is making sure that we have a robust tourist season in New Hampshire. I hope the snow falls. We want people to get out. We're going to focus on the economy. I got a budget to take care of. I got a state to run right now, and that's nothing that we're thinking about. So there's just a lot of work to do. When governors come in or folks come in with 2-year terms, if you start thinking political, you're adding that variable into everything you do. I take great pride in making sure that variable isn't in our decision-making process, that we're only focusing on the state, only focusing on what has to be done to make sure that we get that job done. People didn't send me to be governor to run for another office, right? They sent me to be governor right now to focus on this job, and that's the only thing we're really prioritizing.
All right, Governor Chris Sununu, thanks for helping us break in our new digs here. Appreciate it.